What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode with the new rebrand. We are now the Landlord Society. Now, we were the Young Money Hackers. We decided we liked the name. What do you think, Handel? Did you like the name, the Landlord Society?
I love the name, the Landlord Society. We are a society of landlords.
Absolutely love it.
And potential landlords, of course.
And we're here to help exactly. We're here to help the potential landlords do what they need to do to become landlords. Hence the name, the Landlord Society. So, with that being said, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to actually predict a property market. How can you look into the future? What you need to look for, and to see what an area or a suburb how it might perform in the future, looking forward. There's a lot of information out there, and a lot of it's fine, a lot of it's not so fine. We're here to share with you some of the tips and tricks and overall macroeconomic indicators that really give you some insight into what the market's doing. So, Handel, do you want to kick us off? What is the first thing you think people should be paying attention to when making such a big financial decision like buying property?
Absolutely.
What's a mistake? What do people get wrong?
What do people get wrong? People get wrong the fact that the amount of people that actually invest on rumors, it just astounds me. Like, why are you, like, somebody said something's happening here and expect it to grow? Like, why do you use rumors, man? Just look at data. Data is everywhere. Numbers speak volume. Follow the money. So we're going to cut through the crap, jump right into it. So what's the number one thing that you need to keep an eye out for? You want to check out what's called days on market. Think about it. There's a property for sale right now.
Days on the market.
Days on the market. Oh, isn't that so crazy that we would look at how quickly something sells? I mean, like, I don't know. Have you ever sold something, Let's say you're selling lemonade on a lemonade stand and you put it out on a lemonade stand and there's a glass of lemonade and it gets picked up literally within like a second versus you leave it out
still there cold
and like nobody picks it up because the weather's too cold. Like, what does that tell you about demand? Okay. We know we want to be investing into high demand suburbs, right? You want to make sure that the days on market is nice and low, okay? The longer a property stays stale on a property market, the less demand there is within that marketplace.
100% agree. That is one of the biggest indicators of supply and demand, which is basically that encompasses everything that we're talking about is supply and demand. We're just looking for the indicators that give you the trends of supply and demand moving forward. So that's a really good example, Handel. Yeah, I really agree with you.
So what is then a short, days on market? Well, I can tell you is anywhere between 21 to 30 days. So if a property gets snapped up within 3 to 4 weeks of it hitting the net, well, guess what? You're getting a property in a pretty high demand suburb. So you can be rest assured the property prices there are going to grow in the short term to the medium term and even into the long term as well. So that's a hot market, 20 to 30 days. Anything longer than that is
20 to 30.
Yeah, 20 to 30 days.
Sorry.
3 weeks to 4 weeks.
20 to 30 days. Nice. Okay, good.
Right. Another thing that you want to be looking out for is new buildings and renovations. Like, are properties within that area getting subdivided? New buildings are going up. Are there old properties becoming new and hitting the market? So you can tell, if you see a market on market or realestate.com.au, you're like, yo, I see a property here. And it's like, yo, it's brand new. What added that up? But all the houses there are a little bit crabby, but they looks like they've just done a renovation. Those are the properties that you want to be going for. I mean, that area is what you want to be going for. And those properties are a good indicator that the type of people that are wanting to come into the suburb want something nicer. And that's obviously a good signal for demand because it's
a signal that people are spending money there and they're spending extra money on the renovation in that.
Exactly right. Imagine like a whoop-up suburb, like in the middle of nowhere suburb, right? There's a really old property. It keeps getting dilapidated, right? They're just going to be sold as it is. No one's going to be wanting to do any renovations on that. No one's going to be wanting to do any, value adds on that. It's just going to be getting worse and worse. It's going to be rats and mice over and over and over again. And those are areas that there's no demand. Then what's the opposite of places with demand is people doing stuff to their properties, renovating them, selling them, putting it on the market. There's activity. That's sort of what you're looking for.
Yeah. And before all the heroes come in and say that they can't afford to invest in the expensive areas and that there's no opportunity in the lower socioeconomic areas, we're going to debunk that later on in the episode.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. So we're looking at also another thing that's going to be a great signal for demand is rental prices, right? Is the rental prices going up? Yes, there are websites and there's resources out there available where you can just search up a suburb and then boom, it'll show you where the rental prices are going up or where the rental prices are going down. And just keeping an eye on this just can help you understand that, look, think about it. If more renters are wanting to be in a particular suburb, paying more rent than they did before, well, guess what? It's signaling a demand. And on the investment side of things, that means that your yield is going up as well. So when the yield goes up, then your property prices will go up with it as well, because no investor is going to see a high rental and go, gee, that's a bad investment to take. I buy this and I get really, really high rents. Wow, that's terrible. No one's going to think that. So that's why when rents go up, that means income goes up, then investment demand will go up, as well as people actually wanting to live there as well.
Hondo, how do people actually look for these numbers?
Yeah, so
where would we go for that? So for people listening, they know the information now, where do they actually go to look at the numbers and the data?
A lot of this information is already public as well. I mean, we keep nothing hidden. At the end of the day, it's whether you look before you buy something or not is the most important thing. A lot of this information is so easy to access, but people, the issue that I have with most 99% of property investors, and these are often the ones that get stuck in a 30-year mortgage without being able to afford to pay the repayments, right? They just don't do the homework beforehand, right? So it's not like, where do I find it? That's the difficult part. It's more important that you actually bother to look before you jump into it. Wherever the suburb is that you're looking to buy right now, wherever the suburb is you're looking at, maybe investing down the track, keep an eye on it. See the rental yields, realestate.com.au has rental amounts today. Check back in a month time, 3 month time, 6 months time, and see how much the 3-bedroom properties are going for. All right, used to be $300 a week, now it's $400 a week, $500 a week, $1,000 a week. How is it moving? Keep an eye on the market.
Exactly. Keep your finger on the pulse. Realestate.com.au is a really, really good resource. You can look at the property, the suburb overview. That'll give you a lot of information.
Yeah. So that's right. That's right. So there's plenty of information out there. One more thing that I'd say you look into is, it's got something to do with rental as well, is to keep an eye on vacancy rates as well. Vacancy rates across Australia right now is very low right now, but there are ones out there that are especially low. And those are the areas that are going to be pumping in the medium to long term as well.
Okay, Hondo, look, that's all well and good, but how do we realistically go and chase these gains? Like, what are the steps to take for us to go and use all the information that you've given us here and take a step? What do we do?
So, look, let's first define what a good gain is, right? If property prices went up X%, we would say that's good. If property prices went up Y%, that's bad. Okay, let's define X and Y. Look, historically, in different states across Australia, it's going to be different, but I'm just going to use South Australia as an example. South Australia has seen in the top end go up to about 30% growth in a year, which is crazy. I'm talking, if you invest in a $500,000 property, you made $150K in 12 months on equity growth alone by doing absolutely nothing. That's just on medium. That's if you bought an average property. If you did above average performance within that suburb, you may have cracked above 40%, which is crazy. Right? I'm talking $200,000 equity gains. That's unbelievable, right? And these are suburbs that we've been telling our students to buy literally like a year and a half ago. And it's great to see all these wins come through, which is amazing. But a good gain is that 30%. Yeah. That's what we've seen. That's historical data.
Amazing.
Median growth data. 30% growth is good.
Yeah.
20% is still amazing, right? If you buy a property for $400K, 20% is literally 80 grand in equity growth. I'm sorry, how many of you...
Dude, these numbers, dude, 10% is a good
great benchmark.
If we can do 20%, it's unbelievable, especially for a property that is...
Not to mention...
30%?
Yeah, and not to mention, even the rental yields has not even been counted in this consideration, right? So if property prices go up by 30%, well, what's the rental yield doing?
So do the rents.
That's also giving you a good 5% yield on it as well at the same time on a median property, right? So if you think about it, 30% is pretty damn good. But there were a lot of good suburbs that went up like around 20%, 15%, 10% is still amazing, right? You buy a $500,000 property that goes up by 50K. Let me ask you this: what did you do last year to add $50,000 to your income? Were you looking for a promotion? Were you trying to start a business? Were you trying to do a side hustle? What were you trying to do to make extra $50,000? Or were you even successful doing it? You weren't. But guess what? One decision you make in real estate can make you that kind of money. And for a whole year, without even you thinking about it, property prices gone up 50 grand, 80 grand, 100 grand, 150 grand.
Whoa, hold up, Landlord Society.
Are you sick and tired of the rat race and you want to start building wealth with property and generate passive income?
Then come and drop us a follow on Instagram and DM us the word Landlord.
The word what, Charlie?
The word Landlord, like the Landlord Society.
Okay, wait, Charles, what's our Instagram handle again?
At landlord.society.
You heard him, everybody. DM us the word landlord to our Instagram to learn more about property investing. Now, back to the podcast.
And we see it all the time.
All the time.
It's kind of crazy.
It's crazy.
Like there's a lot of potential, and the Australian property market is amazing. I think that the next few years is going to be really exciting. And what kind of suburbs are these? These aren't high-end suburbs, are they?
Actually,
these are the suburbs that I've been talking about.
Yeah, these are. But here's the thing, before we go into that, right? But think about it. Like, think about the average Australian property investor, right? What are you making on your job? 100K, 120K, 80K, 60, 70K if you're a grad.
100 and 200.
Yeah,
usually.
between, like, if it's in 100, what do physios make these days? 130, 140 grand, whatever the job you have, right? You're making that kind of money, right? You can easily afford to buy a property in that, $400,000 to $500,000 mark. Okay, you've got the property, right? And if they did 10%, 20% gain, that means it made more money than you did in the last year. So why is there such a reliance on our paychecks and wanting to grow our finances? I just don't get it, man. You make the right decision, and that decision is going to take care of itself a lot better than a job that you slave away in. People don't see the reality behind this. Once they realize that, oh crap, real estate's been giving me more money than this. And how do you achieve this? It's just knowledge.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it's a massive mindset thing as well. I remember like when I saw the growth in my properties, I was like, there was a switch that flicked. I was like, I'm a property investor. It was weird to say, it was weird to think. But I think it's just conditioning. A lot of people don't believe it, or nor do they really want to believe that it's true because they've worked so hard in their career, which I love. I think that is fantastic. Always be progressing in whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah. But we're just here to showcase the bloody potential the Australian property market really has, and we want to see people get this.
Exactly right. I mean, imagine there are two different people, right? Two different people, but they've got the same job, same income, same amount of savings, right? Living in a similar type of suburb, sort of middle class sort of thing, right? You're a bloke, you're a lass, you make about 80 to about 100K a year. All right, you've got about 60, 70K saved up, okay, or a bit less, doesn't really matter. You're in a similar situation. You guys have the same purchasing power. One buys, one doesn't. Now, one has a property, one doesn't have a property. What's the difference between them? A property? No, it's just knowledge. One of them doesn't make more money than the other. One of them doesn't have a greater saving than the other. One of them just knows how to do something with what they already are. It's not about being greater than who you are or who we are, but it's about utilizing what we've already got to be able to get to the dream state that we need to be. People fail to realize that. There's not a big difference between a successful property investor with a normal job versus a person with a normal job. It's just a simple flick of the switch with the activation of their knowledge. That's what they're doing. So, okay. Well, I've done my rant. Let's move to the next bit, which is, what kind of suburb are these? Okay, well, let me ask you, what kind of suburbs are these? Okay. Yeah, we look at these data and we see that there's properties that's done 20, 30%, 15 to 30% growth, which is ridiculous, right? And a handful of them are in a suburb and a handful of them are in another suburb. It seems like, there's not really a relationship to like identify where it is, and that's why people get lost, and that's why you clicked on this episode. Like, I get it.
Yeah, but there is one relationship that
Exactly right, and that's something that we want to bring attention to in this podcast today, right? And that is, right, here's the thing. There's gains everywhere. There's money to be made in so many suburbs across the entire nation, right? But let's talk about what areas out of these are realistically, right, transactionable for an average Joe Australian, right? There's plenty of properties that have gone from 1 million to 1.5 million, or 3 million to 4 million, or 4 million to 4.8 million, something like that. These upmarket suburbs do well, or slow socioeconomic suburbs do well as well. When you see the top performing suburbs, it's a real mixed bag is what I'm trying to say. It's a real mixed bag. You get upmarket, top end of the suburb, and then you got the bottom end of a town that are clocking in these massive gains as well. But guess what? There's less top end suburbs making those gains than the bottom end suburbs.
Right. So you're more likely to do well with the lower end.
Absolutely.
Suburbs.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You're listening to this podcast because you can't afford to invest in $1.5 million, $2.5 million properties. Even if they were to go up 30%, and if it did, congratulations, more power to you. But how would you afford to buy them in the first place? All right? Why are you even here? If you can afford to buy $2 million, $2.5 million properties, why are you even listening to the podcast? I know who you guys are. At the end of the day, you got to think about what is realistic. 33% gain, 25% gain, 20% gain, 15% gain is still the gain, whether you invest in $1 million property or a $300,000 property. If you want exposure to the market, stop getting emotional, stop being artistic, but start becoming rational. Find and chase the gains, not the suburb. That's the thing. So, oh, this is a nice area. I need to buy in this area. There's good demand here. No, you don't know anything about property. You don't know anything about property.
Exactly. People tear me to shreds sometimes on the social media because I'm recommending these really shit suburbs. The truth is, some of these really shitty suburbs perform incredibly well. And they're like, well, no one would ever live there. And I'm like, well, that's fine. I can buy it. It doesn't even have to live in it. It's the whole point.
Exactly. The thing,
look at the performance. I've been mentioning these suburbs for the last 12 months. And there are always people, heroes in the comment section saying, well, I would never live there. Who would live there? Like capital. It's like, hey, relax. Look at the numbers.
Exactly right. The thing is, at the Landlord Society, we have a wealth first mindset. Property, here's the thing. Yeah. If you have that mindset of like, this is a good suburb and I can't afford to get in. Well, you know what? Then the suburb's up here and you're down here. You live for that suburb. And you're probably thinking like this. Yeah. This is probably you listening to this. You're probably sitting there going, oh, I need to get more money from my job. I need to get a promotion so that I can afford to live in this suburb. Guess what? In that scenario, you live for the property. You live for the property.
Yeah, that's when you become the bitch of your property portfolio.
Exactly. And this is the classic reason why. This is the classic Aussie dream. As grim as it sounds, people go, hey, once I can afford to buy this property, I'll buy it and I'll move in there and I'll be happy. Well, not really, because you're stuck there for the next 30 years.
No, because you'll be financially stressed. Exactly. And what's your thoughts on like buying one big property, which is what a lot of people are infatuated with, versus buying multiple like cheaper, less expensive, more affordable properties?
Exactly. That was going to be my next point, and that is, if you do have a $1.5 million budget, go and buy $500,000 properties versus $1.5 million property. Think about it. Yeah, think about it. Right? If you have, here's the thing: $1.5 million property could be on like, I don't know, some 700 square meters of land, let's say, right? And a bit further away, slightly shitter suburb, right? Heaps of potential to grow. Here's the thing, right? Like, look, $1.5 million going up 30% is way harder than like the financial talk and economic talk that's required to make like top end suburbs go up like that is a lot. It's like what economic factors are going to drive art prices up? Because like at that level, you're not buying homes with a utility. You're buying like houses with like some artistic aspect to it, right? So it behaves more like an artistic thing. So instead of that, invest into 3 smaller properties, right? 3 cheaper properties rather, okay, that have similar exposure in land masses. Then you have a greater exposure in land. Also, if one of your tenants go kaput, right, you got 2 other sources of cash flow that's going to keep putting money through the door, right? If you want to renovate one of them, do a value add or something like that, then you've got 2 other properties that are still generating money. Whereas if you've got the $1.5 million property, if you want to do anything to that property, you've got to cut the cash flow all the way down to 0 to do anything on there. It doesn't make any sense. So
I think the land aspect is a really big.
It's a huge one.
You know, if you spend $1 million on a high end property, you might get 800 square meters worth of land. Whereas you spend $350,000 on 3 properties with 350 square meters, that's over 1,000 square meters.
Yes, but more likely you'll probably go a little bit further out and get more exposure to the land, meaning it's going to be like 600 to 700 square meters worth of land each. That means you're going to get almost an acre's worth of land exposure, right? Which is amazing, and that's effectively what you want. At the end of the day, right? Like, property isn't about, like, I want to buy it and feel good. Look, you'll feel good when your property values go up 33%. So if it ain't even yours, what does it matter to you? Like, you go, oh, look, that suburb, that's median house price is $2.5 million and it went up 33%. Oh, I can't afford to get it. Well, then go to a suburb where the median house price is $300,000 and then get 25% growth there. At least that way you have exposure to the real estate market and your money is growing at an investment size that you can afford to purchase it. That's the thing. So the way you look at property now changes from this dream to it being a commodity, right?
Yeah.
It's an asset. It's a product at the end of the day. It's just about investing your money. It's about chasing the growth. It's got nothing to do with like chasing the colors and the aesthetics of the property itself. So look, also, and yeah, we've skimmed over this point here, but you're gonna have a better chance at locking in those high gains in a lower socioeconomic area than at an upmarket suburb. Because guess what? Governments look at these low socioeconomic areas where there's crime, there's issues, and then they go, oh, we got to do something about this. So it's like this, in my culture, we have a saying, right? Is that the naughty donkey gets the extra carrot. All right. So it means the naughty of the ones that you care for gets more attention, right? Right. Like governments, they look at these low socioeconomic areas that need improvement and go, oh, these are the areas that are going to be a sore spot, because there's always negativity coming out of these areas. So they go, oh, we got to do something. Our rich people, they'll take care of themselves. It's all good. But that's where there's a lot of attention. They're trying to spruce up these areas. They're trying to gentrify them, especially if they've got good proximity to town as well. So that's where there's weakness, there's opportunity. Where there's weakness, there is opportunity. So that's why with property, when you're investing into them, it's more than it meets the eye. And here's another thing. Why would you invest in a suburb where the prices have already all gone up already?
That's the whole point of identifying the trends, which is what we've been talking about. Yeah,
exactly.
Identifying the trends that we've been looking for, like the listing times, the volume.
If you are somebody,
keep your finger on the pulse.
And if you're somebody that has like tens of $millions dollars, and you look at a suburb that's like median house price, 2.5 million, and you go, yep, I can find 33%, 25% gains there, and I'll buy 10 properties at $2 million each, and like I can make it work. Like, yeah, well, power to you. Good on you, mate. Lucky you. Maybe, okay, send us a DM. We'll have a chat,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Happily. That's it, happily. Like, seriously. But even as somebody that has a pretty large portfolio, I'm still investing. If there's money and there's opportunity, I'll just throw it in there. Like, thank you very much for 25% on $400,000 investment. That's an extra $100K. I'm not complaining.
No, not at all. No, I think it's a really good point. Yeah.
One more thing that I'll add also is that in these suburbs, your rental yields are typically higher as well. Right?
That is...
Yeah. In an upmarket suburb, like your equity is doing well, obviously, but, typically the rental yields are very, very, very shy. Like, you'd be...
Usually an investment, a really expensive high-end investment property, they're barely making you money.
They barely do it.
Rarely ever.
$2 million mansion, or wherever it is, $2 million might not be a mansion depending on where you live, but, let's say a $2 million like upmarket house, would barely get $1,000 a week in rent. That's $52,000 a year. That's just about 2.5% yield a year. That's negatively geared by a whopping 4.5%. You know what I mean? So you might make...
And that's the whole point of rent vesting. That's why people rent upmarket properties where they live.
Exactly.
And then they buy where they invest. That's literally what I do.
That's what I always do as well. Because, when you're at the level that we're at, doesn't really mean much that we own a property that we live in. Like, we want to live in a nice property, and that's it. And we want the mobility to like buzz off somewhere if we need to. We don't have to just stay stuck into that one area. I guess that's what the definition of freedom is. Your definition of freedom is that could be that, you want a property and like you want to just live in there forever, home, this and that. But like for me, being stuck at the same house forever, I don't know, it makes me cringe a bit. Like just having seen the lifestyle that I've experienced, it's just, to me, there's not much of a value in that to me.
And imagine that plus the stress of having, a mortgage that you can't afford. That is the reality for so many Australians. And that's the whole reason we...
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, just going back to the point about the upmarket suburb, right? So if your rental yield there is like 2.5% and you're negative by like 4.5% a year because of the high interest rates, right? Even if you do well on your equity at 25% and on paper it looks good, right? But you got to dial that back down with a negative yield. So your equity isn't as high as it really is. If you realize it across the entire investment itself, then it's actually not yielding that numbers. Whereas in a low socioeconomic area, let's say it does 20%, but the yield is 5, 6, 7%, then collectively you're doing 27%, right? So that's the difference as well. So you got to look at the yields as well. So look, overall, what I could say is, look at the numbers, be numbers focused. And look, this episode isn't to say don't go and invest in upper end, top end suburbs. If you got the money for it, if you think there's good money in it and all that, that's fine. What we're trying to do is get people considering property investment from the point of view of metric data and calculation, rather than, look, this feels good to do it. All right. Like, your feelings aren't worth 6 figures. It's not.
No.
In fact,
and you won't want them to be.
And in fact, you will feel better if your property values go up rather than it goes down anyway. So don't get among the high of purchasing something. Get among the high of making gains on your purchases and trying to identify that before you jump in. That's the ethos. That's the focus that you should have when it comes to investing into properties.
100% agree, Handel. I think that's really well said. Hopefully that has given everyone a lot to think about, a lot to walk away with. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Send us a message if you have any questions. Check out our property investing calculators, which is something that you can apply 10 minutes of your focus, and literally it'll tell you if your property is profitable or not. So with that said, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And until next time, peace.
Take care. Make sure to subscribe. Peace out. Later.